Welcome to the It Is What It Is podcast. Today, I want to talk about dating and how it's fundamentally changed with technology and social media. It's very, very, very difficult for both male and female to find a match or a mate. And it's because social media and dating apps have basically commoditized meeting people. And it's interesting because meeting someone used to be very difficult. And that's what also made it so special. And what I mean by difficult is that back before the internet age, you might live in like a small town or a city, and the ways that you would meet people were by going out and meeting them at some sort of event or hobby, or through mutual friends or being, set up. And there is a certain simplicity and, I guess, beauty to being focused at one person at a time without any distractions, without comparison. And that modality of meeting someone has since shifted in the internet age. You are now matched with so many different people, but more importantly, you're able to swipe and discover through literally, you know, even 10 is a lot, 20 is a lot, 30 is a lot, matches a day. And like that's not really normal human behavior. It really isn't. Typically, you see one person and you decide whether there is some sort of connection. And not only that, modern dating hyperfixates on the things that don't actually matter. You really can't tell true compatibility through a picture. It's the small emotional intelligence, it's the energy and the lingering small details within a person's movement or a smile or how you interact with them that really dictates initial attraction. And it goes back to another sort of fundamental truth about dating is that curiosity is also the basis of attraction. And when your profile shows everything that you are, and you have social media where you can just look someone up and just see everything about them, where your interests and your likes and who you are as a person are distilled down to a simplistic tag of like, oh, I like sushi, I like going out, I like going to the beach, is not at all really indicative of someone's personality or who they are. And because of that, when you look at modern dating and what people aged like 18 to like, 30 or whatever is the dating age now, it's it's so disheartening that it's really really no longer a function of changing your ability to make you more eligible to find someone. It's about gaming an algorithm that is not in your favor. It's about changing who you are as a person and covering yourself up to a perceived beauty standard and preference. And I think that the downstream impact of all of this is just ultimately a really, really large net negative where it's harder for younger people to meet. Their standards are no longer applicable to the generalities of what is actually defined as a true metric of compatibility. And it's so disheartening and frustrating to even meet someone that way. And the worst thing of all of this is that dating apps and social media is pretty much the de facto way to meet someone in the first place. Before, it used to be like a very small percentage of people met through online dating. Now, the large majority does. And this shift really doesn't help society as a whole. And for advice to how to navigate the situation is to not assign your value or your self-worth to what an app tells you, which is really, really, really difficult because online dating and these apps and social media are designed to make money, and you have to be at such a high capacity of emotional resilience and emotional intelligence to recognize the difference between, for example, being rejected and an algorithm just not being in your favor. So, for all the young men out there that are trying to date, understand that there is a difference between self improvement and self growth as a result of learning through different relationships and meeting people, which requires you to have some sort of relationship in the first place or to have an interaction with the gender that you are attracted to, versus the negativity and the bias and like the unfair discrimination against you based on a persona, an online persona, that even if you were the perfect, most handsome person, still does not get you what you actually want, which is finding someone. Now, if your goal is something different than that, that's a whole different set of recommendations of how to optimize. But essentially, it's really, really easy to think as a young man, I do not get any matches, therefore, I am not worthy. Or that is a form of rejection. And if you think about it, it could be a multitude of factors related to the application itself. It's almost like a woman is not explicitly rejecting you, the app is, right? Your true metric is really if you were face to face with another person, if they would be interested in you or not. There is no funnel within the app that's truly indicative of you. An example of this is if you produce, let's just say you take a really, really popular YouTuber's video, like Mr. Beast, and then you upload it on a completely brand new channel. I guarantee you, By doing that, it will get a fraction of the views that it would get if it was posted to his main channel. And that logic, unfortunately, applies to dating, where it could literally just be a function of how many people this profile was shown to. And the algorithm is not always accurate. Not only that, an algorithm's dictating your self-worth, which is just not true. So it's really, really, really difficult for a young man to get a signal to if he's really put in the work to be, a better person and to be a good partner. When in reality, even if you did all those things and you were a good person and a good partner and you know, you essentially had a partnership to offer, you could still get completely destroyed by circumstance and software that does not know your value as a human. And that is an uphill battle that just destroys anyone's confidence. And it, especially if you're still trying to figure out who you are and what you want in life, it can really, really push young men to things to sort of cope with that feeling. Because as men, we have egos, we have expectations of ourselves, of who we are. And ultimately, this is why you see such a shift in the paradigm within this population of young men towards basically leveraging external sources for validation. And when you think about it, it's such a reasonable thing to do because it's so much more difficult now to even do it the right way. And it's really, really disappointing. It's basically destroying society. For the young women out there who are trying to find that right partner, I think that the dating apps that are used feed into engagement and usage. And how do you get a young woman to use the app more? You get it by playing into some of their deepest desires subconsciously when they try to date. And one of those desires is attention. And it's a completely normal human thing to like attention, especially from men, because that's specifically a reason why you want to find a partner, especially at the early stages of dating. Someone who will listen to you, that will understand you, that will pay attention to you is a universal trait that any young woman that's dating would want to find. Unfortunately, this attention economy has really taken something that was supposed to be unique and specific and nuanced and turned it into a marketplace where it can be bought and sold. And if you think about that, that devalues the beauty of true compatibility and matchmaking. In the same way that men are starting to outsource their external validation from women to other places of external validation, women are basically doing the same thing, but instead of externalizing it, it's literally in the app. And that creates a distorted reality of what truly exists in the market. A great example of this is, I guarantee you, if you look at your own YouTube feed or your TikTok feed, and keep in mind the dating apps use very, very similar algorithms for personalization and recommendations. You go to someone else's page or channel or whatever it may be, you'll see a completely different set of content recommended to that person. So you will only ever see a subset of basically recommendations, or in this case, matches on your feed as a young girl. And you're going to think that when you're shown only 5% of the guys, that you're going to believe that this is the entire dating market. But like, who wouldn't, right? You're almost living in a self-contained echo chamber that's designed to keep you validated and given attention. If you are put into this echo chamber, it destroys any ability for fundamentally real connection, because real connection takes time. And instead of that, it's basically flooding all of the things that you might want in a very cheap way. And that's the very same thing that's happening on the men's side as well. And to be clear, this isn't a men hate women or women hate men type of thing. I think that dichotomy and those talking points are as a result of the software that is basically bludgeoning the connection between these two genders, or whichever gender that you're attracted to, because of the simple fact that now you have a middleman, which is a piece of software that's arbitrarily judging you in your value, in your worth, and automatically selecting what it perceives is the best thing for you, not even on the basis of actual compatibility, but on the basis of paying these companies more money. So fundamentally, my whole thing is to not get trapped and to not have your self-esteem be, in good or bad, be hinged to these dating apps that are literally not looking out for your best interest. The real conflict is just the apps itself. And unfortunately, in this day and age, it's a necessity. If you do not use a dating app, it's much, much harder for you to find someone. Not impossible, but it's much harder. And it's just really, really unfortunate that it's a really, really bad outcome for both genders, but then you're forced to use it. So the only way that you can really navigate those feelings and emotions through a very vulnerable thing, for a vulnerable life event that happens to everyone, is just a reminder to be aware of the situation and just realize that that is the situation. It's not easy for anyone to date. And unfortunately, you have to use a platform that truly, truly, truly does not have your best interest in mind. It's almost like you live in a town and there's only one restaurant in that town and you have to eat to survive. So then you're forced to eat at that restaurant over and over and over and over and over again. And eventually, like, you're just going to get pissed, right? Like, it's inevitable. So all of this frustration and anger and potentially shame is very, very normal for having a robot as a middleman for love. It's expected. It's definitely not okay, but it's a consequence of the environment and the society that we live in today and just how things are done. Of course, I wish things were different, but overall, my messaging is just to not let a robot dictate your self worth and your own self esteem. Period.